Good morning, everyone. Some show notes off the top. Apologies about the chipmunk thing. It was not intentional. It was just some software issues that were going on with my computer. That is now fixed. I tested it. Fingers crossed, there's no chipmunk sound for the first 2 minutes of this video. Apologies for any blown speakers or any other things that may have happened. Not my intent, certainly. Yesterday, I meant to mention this. I had the wrong link, and it was both of the doctor's links. So when I clicked the second link, it didn't trigger me to say, why is this wrong? Anyway, regardless, this is an interview with Randy Hillier, Maxime Bernier, and a few other currently sitting MLAs and other people out in Alberta, etc. And I don't know all the names actually off the top of my head. I haven't watched this whole video yet, but what I have seen, the first maybe 10 or 12 minutes, is good. Great job by the Western Standard by getting this batch of people to come and chat with you. Well done. And I'm interested to see how this platform grows. But it's a worthwhile interview. It's got relatively low views at this point in time. I think it's maybe just not widely disseminated. Maybe a lot of people don't know about it, but it's quite a good interview. The premise is interesting, and it's exactly what you would want out of a political panel. I think in usual times you would spend a lot of money to go and see the four of these people speaking together. So a lot of money, like $50 Canadian, like a lot of money in the political world. Okay. You might spend money to go and see these people. So I think that's worthwhile. Noting that it's out for free. You should check it out. You should watch what's happening. These guys are part of the Freedom Caucus, and they are they're out there willing to say things that are unpopular and draw the ire of pretty much everybody who's in charge currently. So and it's not easy to do that. So well done everyone on this panel. Thank you for standing up, etc., etc. Okay, moving forward. Here is getting down into lockdown. Theresa Tam. Her office admits their rocket ship COVID-19 modeling takes a simplified approach to projections. Tam's office admits the rocket ship approach simplified. Yeah, no, we simplified it to make it look really scary. See, scary as it could possibly be. And then maybe you'll listen. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. It was simplified to be scary. It's terrible. It's terrible. But I don't know if it was simplified to be scary. But here's the CJOC 94.1 FM, and this is out in BC way. It says Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Dina Hinshaw, says variants spread quickly. And in some countries, stricter measures have been needed to prevent the strain on the healthcare system. We're going to see a lot about this fear-mongering very soon when we get into the next segment. But it's interesting to see. I want to highlight that it's across the country. It doesn't matter if you're in BC, which BC has a different climate than Ontario, that has a different climate than like St. John, say, or Deer Lake, say. And so like the sickness is going to look different in different places, right? And so interesting that at the same time, we're seeing these variants of concern. I don't know if we're actually seeing the variants of concern, though. The Ontario government will allow the resumption of haircuts and outdoor fitness classes in the gray zone as the province moves Hamilton back into lockdown. Now, the problem that I have with this is if you make an agreement with government, like these are the rules and this is what we're going to do, and if you meet these criteria, we're going to move you into this, and these criteria are going to move you into this, and these are the rules, and blah, blah, blah. And then they change the rules. Instead of following their rules that they made, they change the rules and say, okay, even though the numbers say that you could probably be in red or orange or whatever, we're going to keep you in gray. But to keep you happy, and not just the salons, right? People need to get their haircut, and they're getting sick of driving out of the city to get their haircut. So they change the rules to keep people happy, like the public happy, so they don't say, oh, forget this is ridiculous, right? And start protesting. So they change the rules in order to maintain the lockdown. Okay, so it's not tolerable. So they changed the rules, but they didn't lift the lockdown. And it's not good because the business doesn't have a framework they can rely on. There's no way you can plan. Listen, to have a business, you have to say, I can get this product for cheap. Right? Where's my pen? I usually use a pen. I can get this product for cheap. And then I can sell it to other people because me getting the product is valuable enough that all I have to do now is mark it up because I've done the hard work of getting the product here to wherever I am. And that's worth the markup to the end user. Here you go. But if now it is changed, the end user can't come to me to get the product, or all sorts of different blocks that the government decides to, write up with their fancy new pen they bought from me. it blocks you from being able to either access cheap product or access the customer that will pay the inflation. So your business is moot. It's nothing. You've got bills, right? Either you're buying product or you're buying food, or you're paying rent for a building that you can't occupy. Your customers can't come in and exchange goods, right, in the public sphere. This is a lie by the government, and it's a lie of the worst way. It's a breaking of a contract, right? The contract is, we are going to abide by these rules. Ha, just kidding. Just kidding. These rules. Just kidding. These rules. You done yet? Nope. These rules. Ha ha ha. Like suckers, right? It's very, very frustrating. So I don't like, I mean, and it's clear why they're doing this, why they're allowing haircuts and outdoor fitness facilities, because the gym owners and whatever would have none of it, right? And people would be upset because people are upset. And they do this as a oh yeah, you can do this, and then they're going to lock us all down again in September because seasonality, right? People are going to get sick again in September because of seasonality. Oh, COVID variants of concern. We're doubly concerned. COVID-22. Oh no, right? Like this is where we're heading, people. Just understand that. I know Chris Sky's been saying this, but there are a lot of people who this is becoming crystal clear. Watch. Faced with pressure and evidence the beauty industry isn't putting lives at risk, Doug pretends to listen but not capitulate by allowing them to open on April 12th. Why wait? Why not today? What if cases go up? More nonsense from Ford Nation. So barbers and salons will be allowed to open in the gray zone. Toronto appeal starting April 12th. So all of the problems, just kidding. We'll change the rules again. Come April 12th, do you think that they'll have the same contract in place? Oh, you know what? Just because our medical officer of health told us to, we have to shut down. Just kidding, right? Garbage. I came across this yesterday. This kind of stuff interests me. He says, I was in the right place at the right time. And he tags, Frank Billett says, tags Rebel News and Sheila Gunn Reid. This guy's using common law to fight the jurisdiction of these people, to keep them out of places of business that are deciding to not abide by mask bylaws. And basically you get a fine and a summons. The summons, is to set the fine in court. So you show up in court, and then a lot of them have been thrown out. I think this is probably BC, maybe Alberta. Alberta's had a lot of them thrown out. I'm sorry, I don't know exactly where Frank's from. Sometimes people from all across Canada follow me, and I try and follow real people back. So I can get a good kind of clear picture of what's going on across the country, right? And stuff like this is really interesting to me, right? And he says, don't say happy birthday, say happy born day. I thought that was funny. And it has a logical progression. But he was asking, and they said, why were all these people here? And it's because this guy's business, the guy at the beginning here, his business didn't want to have the mask mandate. Like, masks are not required. That's why two cops and two city workers and two cops were there. Dangerous, right? Dangerous. Ontario's 30-day COVID-19 cases per 100,000 residents at 0.09. That's one COVID-19 death per 100,000 people every 11 days. The province is being kept shut down at this level of mortality. Kelly Brown he's a finance guy, and he looks at finance data, and he applied that finance data analytical mind to the COVID data. And I think stuff like that's really interesting, because I have a mind for questions. I have a mind for, like, I'm pretty sure somebody said something about this in my past, and then I can go back and find that thing, and then I can connect it, and then I'm like, isn't that interesting that you said this then? And like the Board of Health in Guelph on the 16th said, we don't send orders. There's no orders calling for healthy children to be isolated in their homes on the 16th. There's no order for that. And then suddenly by the 20th, there was an order for that. Like, that's just wild, right? Like, didn't you say this? And then, right. So there'll be a story coming out about that. I really am thinking of doing a book called Losers. Loser, because I think it would be a really kind of funny look. Not funny. I think it would be a poignant look at, like, going up against these people, and these people being like the machine that is, like, the Ministry of Health or the Ministry of the Wellington Dufferin Guelph Health Unit, or the education, the Upper Grand District School Board, and just show you that it doesn't matter how right you are. It doesn't matter how you can say, isn't this racism? Like, you're going to lose. So is it worth it? Is that the system we want? I don't know. Maybe people will be interested in that. So I think I'm going to start working on that. I've been working on Doctatorship, but I think it's a little bit big. The scope is so big that I'm like, oh my goodness. I've got chapter 1 kind of sketched out. I'm way off here, but it doesn't matter. I've got chapter 1 kind of sketched out, and it's big. It could be a book by itself, and I'm like, okay, I need to cut it back. So I've been struggling with cutting it back. Maybe I should just like do it all and then cut it back after. I don't know. Strategizing, man. It's like 6 months, right? Like to do that, it'll be 6 months. But to do Loser, I think I could probably do Loser in about 2 weeks. I think 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. 3 weeks? Okay. I'm going to work on it. I think it'd be fun. Okay. And I think that Kelly, I think that I want to talk to him because I'm interested in his analytic brain, because I like to make connections and then just put them out there. Like, I don't know necessarily what to do with the connections. I saw that one woman who's got the team who does the research and she's got all sorts of stuff. She's got an idea of what to do after you find a correlation that doesn't make any kind of sense, right? And all I can do is ask the people in charge, like, hey, aren't you supposed to be looking at this, right? And I just feel like, I don't know, chewing the fat with Mr. Brown would be interesting. So maybe I should reach out and talk to him. I think that would be interesting to maybe have him on Speaking Moistly or just do an interview with him on this channel. Let me know if you'd be interested in that in the comments and I'll reach out to him. Okay, moving into... Oh, wait, no, this is the House of Commons. House of Commons rejects motion to end the lockdowns. So, yes, I've been talking about why don't the Conservatives talk about ending the lockdowns. And somebody said, hey, genius, did you miss the motion that they brought on Wednesday asking for the end of lockdowns? And I read what they asked for, and it asked for a plan within 20 days for an end to lockdowns. And I said, well, they asked for a plan to end lockdowns. The rhetoric is, we'd like a plan to end lockdowns. The rhetoric isn't, and there needs to be an end to the lockdowns. And I think that there's a discernible difference there. There's weak language there. And I think that if Aaron O'Toole was saying that there needs to be an end to the lockdowns unequivocally, if he hammered that point, if he was talking about that all the time, if he was shaming these liberals, then maybe you'd have a shot. But nobody talked about this. Aaron O'Toole there haven't been clips about him talking about the damage done by lockdowns and having interviews with people talking about the damage that lockdowns are doing to small business, the damage the lockdowns are doing to mental health, the damage the lockdowns are doing to blah, 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 everything. Right? And you could, and this is my problem with Scheer too. There was so much material to hit Trudeau with, and they were always like, we could do it better. You know, those vaccine passports, you don't want those liberals doing it. You can't trust them because of SNC Lavalin. We'll do it better. And it's like, oh, what kind of fresh hell is this? Sign up for your poison shot, right? Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. It's like watching a movie where the bad guy's super obvious. Like, it's like made for kids, so the bad guy's like comically overstatedly bad. It's Paw Patrol and Mayor Humdinger, right? Like nobody would vote for Mayor Humdinger. Terrible analogy, but still, right? Like it's comic, it's exaggerated, and still, you know, we just carry on. No, we've got to continue doing the lockdowns. Kids committing suicide at 4 times the rate? Sorry, I didn't hear you over the need to continue our lockdowns. Right? Like, how can you come to this conclusion? Here is Roman Baber again. And here's another Freedom Caucus member, which is good. He's fighting for us. It's lonely to do this. It's not easy to do this. It's not easy to stand up in the House of Commons and have people... Elliot responds kind of matter-of-factly, like, we're trying to keep people healthy and safe, and that's why. Like, duh. But they're not, though. Like, if you look only at COVID-19, and then we're going to look at some data, the stats are such that there are other collateral damage that are much worse than they would have been if this bad policy response hadn't happened. Right? And it's not COVID's fault. It's the bad policy and it's the tone-deaf response of not looking at any of the data we've accumulated in the last year. It's not like we haven't lived with COVID for the last year. It's not like we haven't had schools open, daycares open most of the time. It's not like we haven't gotten back to a semblance of a normal life, but we don't have concerts. We don't have all the things that make us human. We can't get on a plane, right? Because variants of concern, but they don't have the data to say clearly, here it is, right? It's always fear-mongering, always saying it might happen in the coming weeks. Even the hostage video we saw yesterday from Dr. Warner, I think, you know, patients could suffer, and I might have to use this form that will deny you health care if you don't listen to me and lock down right now. We're at 85%. We're at 85%. We'll get there too. But here's Roman Baber. We'll watch his question. Well, this is why target the beauty care industry if it's responsible for 0 out of 1,300 deaths. Watch Elliot's fear-mongering response, and that's what I'm highlighting here. It's fear-mongering. They're doing it on purpose in a coordinated way. Here we go.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Premier. The beauty industry is beautiful. Ontario's beauty and personal care industry employs about 200,000 people. It's over 81% female-owned and operated. According to Beauty United, more than 20% of the industry already shut down, and many more will not survive the lockdown. The Premier likes to say that it's about health and science, but there's no data to suggest that beauty and personal care are putting anyone at risk. According to StatsCan, the personal care industry is responsible for about 44 out of 9,000 outbreaks recorded in Canada since the pandemic. It's responsible for 0 deaths out of approximately 13,000 deaths attributed to outbreaks in Canada. They book appointments, have strict sign-ins, capacity control, and ability to contact trace. They're trained in infection protocol and control, and are the only industry that's trained in IPAC that remains shut down. Targeting them makes absolutely no sense. My question then is, why is the Premier ruining hundreds of thousands of lives and livelihoods by keeping the beauty and personal care industry closed?
Mr. Health to reply.
To the member opposite, I would say to keep people healthy and safe. That's the reason why. There is absolute sense to that. This is an issue that has been discussed with the Chief Medical Officer of Health and the Public Health Management Table. As the member will be aware, the variants of concern are now the dominant strain in Ontario. It's a more deadly strain. It's much more transmissible. It results in more hospitalizations, more intensive care units being occupied by people with the variants of concern, and unfortunately more deaths. Now, with respect to the beauty industry, personal care industry, that is an area where people are in very close proximity. Because of these variants of concern that are so transmissible, it's really important at this stage, as we are trying to get vaccines into people's arms and keep the transmission of those variants of concern low, that we have to move very carefully and very cautiously. That is the reason why beauty products and personal care salons have not been opened yet.
So variants of concern, very, very spread fast. Lots of other people are in the ICU, and if they're in the ICU, they take more ICU units. Look at that. But Dr. Kaur, and the real Dr. Kaur, not Dr. Gill this time, I think, she says this is disgusting. At C. Elliott, Christine Elliott, the Minister of Health, said that variants are the majority and are more deadly and filling ICUs. Where is the data proving any of this? Spoiler, there is no such data. Ford Nation continues to ignore the hashtag harms of lockdown. They will pay for crimes against humanity. It's scary. It's scary what's happening. Okay, here's a critical care doc. This is Dr. Warner, I think, from yesterday. And CTV Toronto is reporting on it. A Toronto critical care doctor is sounding the alarm on overwhelmed intensive care units as COVID-19 patients are transferred out of the Greater Toronto area to manage capacity. And so this is 3 hours ago. So today is the 27th. This is from the 26th. Hold on. Here's the data from the 26th up to the 26th. Okay, it says of the 264 in Toronto hospitals, 25 are in ICU, 6 are intubated, and only 1 in the last month. The other 5 have been intubated for 2 to 4 months. And he's got a chart here. And more than that, Jean-Marc Benoit, he's a doctor. He's an emergency room physician. Okay. He says this appears to be a subset of Toronto data. Total numbers in ICU is much smaller than CCSO. This is a hospital database, ? And then the database says this is the data source. You can download the data yourself. And it's a link to the full data, the COVID-19 data source from Toronto. So the fear-mongering is intense. And I don't know what they're basing it on, right? I don't know what they're basing it on because the numbers don't say that, right? Here's more fear-mongering. Hold on a second. I accidentally closed the tab when I meant to switch to the tab. Statement from Anthony Dale, OHA, on the situation in Ontario hospitals. Quote, if the number of ICU admissions continues to increase in the days ahead, as it is expected, Ontario's hospitals will be under extraordinary pressure to try and ensure equitable access for life-saving critical care. What does equitable access mean? What does that mean? Does that mean that we're going to deny you care if too many people of a certain need come in? Or is it even worse? Is it too many people of a certain color? Certain levels, certain non-COVID? Here's another person, Eric Vandwell. He says he's president and CEO of Joseph Brant Hospital. He says, again, we're at a crossroad. Variants of concern, the norm in a matter of weeks. Critical care, COVID occupancy. Why did these variants of concern become critical in a matter of weeks? They increased the cycle counts, right? They changed it from 30 to 35, and they did this on the 15th, and they did it again the other day. I was talking about it, right? So the Brazilian variant, remember I went through, it was actually was it was either Millhouse or it was Mr. Brown, Kelly Brown's, I think, data that I was going through. There was a whole thread talking about what the change meant. And he was like, am I misunderstanding any of this? The Brazilian variant, blah, 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 all of that stuff. So it's wild. Anyway, so using that to scaremonger is this president and CEO of a hospital. Okay. Anyway, variants of concern, the norm in a matter of weeks. Critical care COVID occupancy, the highest ever by the end of this weekend. Oh, it's not right now, but by the end of this weekend, it will be. You just wait and watch. And by Monday, you'll forget. Requiring reductions in scheduled care. Immediate measures for at least 3 weeks is required now to protect Ontarians. Another 3-week lockdown right now. We need it now. Anything less is irresponsible. Don't worry about all of those collateral damage from lockdowns. Don't talk about it. Cancer care, missed screenings, all of the other social and cultural implications of a hard lockdown, business implications. Don't worry about it. We need to get the variants of concern under control. Don't you understand? The cycle counts are 38. Our Ontario hospital statement, this is Anthony Dale, he's referenced in the earlier tweet, about Ontario's critical care system reaching its saturation point and the actions being taken in an effort to ensure equitable access. What's equitable access? How about we just give access to people who are here and who pay into the system, right? Like if you're in Ontario, you pay into OHIP, right? Ontario. Your healthcare, that's where your tax dollars go. It's not free, everyone. It's not just magic, right? Like you pay into it. So, and you have a health card for a reason. Like if you walk into a hospital and you say, I've broken my arm, they'll say, that's a shame. Where's your OHIP card? Where's your health card? I mean, right? Same thing. But what's equitable access, right? I've got this health card here. Oh, I'm sorry. Your broken arm is going to have to wait. This COVID thing says your quality of care in a year might not be great. So you're going to have to wait. Sorry about that. Anyway, equitable access to life-saving health services for COVID and non-COVID patients. So now we're discerning between COVID and non-COVID patients. Here's Lindsay Murphy, and she says, I hear the faint cry of wolf. This is Millhouse Van Houten, and he says Toronto ICU is at 84% capacity. Good. Acute is red at 91, but the goal is only less than 90, and it's probably close to 100% much of the time without COVID. Yeah, it was 110, right? ICU bed occupancy rate, 84%. So fear, man. Be terrified. Be terrified. Be more terrified. If you're not terrified, be afraid that you're not afraid enough. Britain is a dystopian parody. This is essential benching only. Okay? This essential seating only. Not to be used for the consumption of food or drink. Protect the NHS. Stay home. Save lives. You are on CCTV. If you eat food here, you will be issued a fine. Sad, because I don't think I'm far off. Here's another one, and there's a quick follow-up to this, okay? Suez Canal ship crisis may unleash worldwide toilet paper shortage. Oh, here it is. My daily opportunity. All the big hits from 2020. Do you remember toilet paper shortage? Right? It was early Easter last year, right? The Easter bunny was faintly hopping in the background, and you could hear people's terror about the toilet paper shortages. And so why not just bring it back, right? Evergreen Suez Canal, toilet paper shortage 21. Yay, let's do it again. It's like planking, but like way worse. So I saw the Ottawa Citizen reporting this, and I was like, shame on you for reporting things like that, because people are just going to go out and buy toilet paper and fear mongering and all of this kind of stuff. And I hadn't seen that it was like out of the States or it was picked up by AP or there was any kind of basis in like reality for reporting on this toilet paper shortage, other than I thought the Ottawa Citizen was just like, oh, let's incite people to buy toilet paper. You know, like toilet paper hasn't been on sale for a while. Let's pick those sales up. But then I saw this and I was like, okay, it ties into the Suez Canal. So let's talk about it, just because it's not just Canada that's fear mongering about toilet paper. It's everywhere. And they're using Evergreen Suez Canal as the thing that kicked this whole thing off. Toilet paper shortage. So they're going to try. So this is a big deal, not just for toilet paper. Got to get that toilet paper. Remember when in 2020 when there were like CEOs of toilet paper companies saying like, no, we make it here. Like, it's okay. Don't worry. We're not going to run out of toilet paper. Anyway, this has been a wild ride. Like, things that you did not expect would be an issue when you were 15 years old in 1990s, like Ontario, right? In 2020. Like, really, goodness me. They're going to shut Line 5 down? Really? And this is a climate change issue? And we're going to solve the problem this way. Okay. Anyway, officials at the Suez Canal Authority said they were planning to make at least 2 attempts Saturday to free the vessel when the high tide goes down. Now, tide is interesting because it happens a lot, like daily, right? Like I'm pretty sure that's how tides work. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Suez Canal, like the tides are different and they don't work daily. But I thought tides were like tied to the moon, and the moon is kind of a thing that it's a daily thing, right? Like anyway, could be wrong. I've been wrong before, but. You'd think that they would have tried the first time they had. Is this the first time they had an opportunity to try, or does the tide come in and out a couple of times and they were like, how are we going to do this? Let's not. And I mean, fair enough. If you look at something and you're not 100% sure that you're not going to make it worse by intervening, don't make it worse until you're sure that or you're pretty sure anyway that what you're going to do is going to help, right? But like, you'd think they'd have a plan. Like, you'd think they'd have a plan for this kind of emergency, right? Like, you'd think they'd have thought about it and then had a plan. But no, even if they have a plan, why would they call the people who made the plan? That would just be complicated, right? Potentially toxic masks distributed in schools and daycares in Quebec. Don't forget to put your mask on. Gray and blue SNN 200 642 masks should no longer be used. Warn Quebec and Ottawa. Yikes. Yikes. I fear that somebody was saying that there's going to be problems in a few years with people having the impacts, like the fallout from the prolonged masking and the lack of regulations, because stuff like this happens. And can you imagine if like your kid was wearing a toxic mask for 3 weeks and you were like, no, it's good for you. Make sure you keep it on, right? Listen to your teachers. It's a scary thing. It's a scary thing. Even if you're trying to do what's right for your student, for your kid, right? For your son or your daughter. If you're trying to do what's right and still, right? Goodness me. Thrown down the river by the regulators. City of Guelph, are you saying that once... Okay, so Guelph posted this. What are your plans for Passover? COVID rules apply until all caps, everyone gets vaccinated. Shot 1, shot 2, then kisses and hugs 2. Yuck. And then hashtag COVID-19 Guelph and at the public health. And so Rachel is responding and she says, are you saying that once everyone has been vaccinated, we're free? Once everyone has been vaccinated in our family, we're allowed to see each other and kiss each other regardless of the region, color? This is interesting public health policy. And Guelph responds, no, we used all caps to emphasize everyone, not just your family. Even if you're vaccinated, you can spread the disease to someone who isn't. And people are like kind of upset about all this. And rightly so. I think like the vaccine coercion is not just at the national newspaper level, it's like every single level to the city, to the official city account, right? And I think that people want to be known and seen as doing good. I always say that people aren't like the bad guy in there. You're not Darth Vader in your story, right? Unless you're an angsty teen, right? And you're goth or something like that. And it's cool if you are, but most people in their day-to-day lives aren't walking around with the Imperial March in their head. And they don't want to rock the boat too much. But like the push for this vaccine from every level, literally like it's like standing in a shower that's got all those fancy like wall things and you don't even really know how to turn them on. And if you turn them on, the water's cold anyway. You're like, turn it off. And it just blasts you from all sides. There's no getting away from it, right? But there's concerns. People are concerned. Like people who are trained in this kind of stuff are concerned. People are saying, hold on a second. Let's think about this. U of G expert has concerns over lack of data provided about COVID-19. So all these people who are trying to do good and follow what the media and the politicians are telling them is good may be unintendedly doing a lot of harm because the outcome isn't known because we're for some insane reason not questioning a vaccine when everybody's like, no, don't want HCQ or ivermectin. Ooh, that's scary, right? But don't question the vaccine. If you question the vaccine, you're a terrorist, right? Right-wing, white supremacist terrorist. Don't question vaccine, anti-vaxxer terrorist. It's very, very insidious, right? And it's so slippery. It's easy, right? Like Twitter, boom, done. Easy. Argument dismantled, right? Okay, like many others, Dr. Bridle said he worries that Pfizer and Moderna released their interim test results as a press release without full scrutiny of the results, he said. Many questions are left unanswered. Quote, not enough data has been released to know how well the vaccine prevents COVID-19 or if it can weaken symptoms, he said. Nor Do we know how protective the vaccine will be for those who are most susceptible to severe cases? For Bridle, a larger concern is a lack of data on the immune response offered by the vaccines, which are called subnet vaccines because they use a fragment of the virus to trigger an immune response. Subnet vaccines like these can be misinterpreted by the immune system as an extracellular pathogen, he said. That creates the possibility that those who receive such a vaccine might have a bias imprinted on their immune system that could cause them to respond suboptimally to natural infections with future coronaviruses. Bridle said the companies provided no data about the vaccine's effect on immunological memory, which is the entire point of a vaccine. If the memory response is weak and wanes too quickly, those who receive the vaccine will not be protected over the long term. And there's so much more to this. I mean, it's hard to get all of it into a news report, because news reports are supposed to be like a 30,000 foot view of the report. Like, here's the most important things. So there's a lot more in there too. And I don't know. I hope that they get the platform they need to speak to the people they need to speak to advocate for their position, because I agree with their position. Ford calls Canadian vaccine rollout a joke, says Trudeau government dropped the ball. I have talked about how the vaccine is a distraction. They're talking about, I've seen lots of tweets about how there's lots of extra doses of vaccine around in Toronto. Yesterday I heard that there were 3,000 extra doses that were nearing their end of life, and so people could access them if they wanted to have a dose. Like, they had 3,000 doses that were going to be destroyed in the coming days or something like that if they weren't used, and so people were driving to get them, like from places that didn't have access to that, I guess. And I think that speaks poorly to demand. And I was mentioning that to my family. And I think it was my mother-in-law mentioned that she had heard on the news a similar story, but from a different source. Now, it may have been the same story, just repackaged for a different news source. But very interesting that there's a lot of, and I see a lot of different people saying, hey, I operate this vaccine facility or whatever, because I try and follow health units and whatever, and they retweet a lot of things. But hey, I'm here and we've got lots of doses come tomorrow and the next day. And it's like, if there was a huge vaccine demand, you would think that those vaccine options would be snapped up quick, right? And it's not like they're not calling people who are eligible. It's not like they're not making people aware that they're available. And I'm not advocating for the vaccine, but I think because the vaccine rollout is not the news that people want, and I think that it's gonna be like, right, like 50% might be the high point. If you get 50%, I don't think we're going to get 50% because of the concerns about AstraZeneca. But because it's not the news that they're going to want to talk about. They're not going to want to talk about those kind of stories of like lots of doses going to the garbage or not being used in time or anything like that, because that's just going to go away. Like, people aren't going to make that connection unless somebody makes that connection for them. But they're manufacturing a different crisis. How do you manufacture a crisis? You Andy Kaufman it, right? Andy Kaufman was a comedian, but he pioneered the wrestler thing, calling each other on in like mainstream media. And he like had a famous fight with all sorts of people on, I think it was Johnny Carson. He'd come on and he'd like call people out. And then it was like ridiculous. It was a comedy thing. But like the act of calling someone out creates news. So Ford calls Canada's vaccine rollout a joke and says Trudeau government dropped the ball. So now we're fighting. Now we're fighting, right? And response, here is, hold on. Adam Vaughn says, Ford is majorly wrong. The majority of the time. I realize Laurie Stone is just repeating what Ford Nation is blurting out. But here are the graphs from Monday to Wednesday and today that showed shipped doses and administered doses. It shows who had the majority and not kept pace. All right, so they're saying that because there's doses in reserve, they haven't got enough vaccines in arms and they're lagging and all this other stuff. So it's a fight. It's something to report on that's kind of around the subject that you can talk about, right? It doesn't talk directly about the loss of civil liberties. It doesn't talk directly about anything that's really going on, but it talks around kind of the issues of the day, and you can pit two people against each other. Oh, this Ford guy's a loudmouth buffoon, and the federal government dropped the ball and we need to replace them. Right? It's a puppet show. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. It's a distraction. It's a bullshit distraction. That's what it is. Ian Petrie says, there's further, right? Do you want a third person in on this? Ian Petrie says, so in addition to trying to coerce all Ontarians to get the vaccine, the government is admitting they want to inject all the Mexican workers who show up for the summer. So Rob Ferguson is reporting, migrant farm workers should get COVID-19 shots upon arrival at Pearson Airport, says Ontario Associated Medical Officer Dr. Barbara Yaff. Yaffe. If they don't do it, we will probably do it, she adds, referring to the federal government. So if the federal government doesn't mandate this, we'll probably mandate this. And there were major outbreaks at farms last year in Ontario, right, for the farm workers, the migrant farm workers who came here. So hammering our food security, hammering our food autonomy, like the ability for us to create our own food, and also satisfying the need for arguments. This is arguments. Lots of people talking at each other, arguments, right? Okay. That's how it worked in my brain anyway. Okay, moving on to the carbon tax. This is MP Stephanie Kusi, and she says she has some questions for the Supreme Court of Canada. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Kusi, the Member of Parliament for Calgary-Midnapore. Today, the Supreme Court ruled that the carbon tax is not unconstitutional. Well, I have a few questions for the Supreme Court. Is the right to earn a living unconstitutional? Is the right to put food on the table unconstitutional? Is destroying a province unconstitutional? Is destroying a region unconstitutional? Is destroying an entire industry unconstitutional? I think it is. Please follow and share if you agree with me. Thank you. Hi.
So there are people upset about the Supreme Court decision, and what are you going to do? I floated the idea of a notwithstanding clause. I don't think that works that way. Seamus O'Regan says pricing pollution is the most efficient and efficient weapon against climate change. It's a market-based, small c conservative tool that harnesses the market's ability to innovate. It's stable, predictable, and 100% constitutional. Sure. So let's move on. We've got work to do. And somebody said, hold on, I think it was very good, so I'll highlight it. The comment section is an absolute minefield of terribleness, and it's very, not funny, but it's funny. And Friends of Science outlines this, but I asked about, what about BC, who's had a carbon tax for 10 years and or more, and hasn't meaningfully reduced emissions. But here's one from Norway, energy policy from Friends of Science. They say, wrong. Greenhouse gas emissions in Norway, do carbon taxes work? And it says, while the partial effect from lower energy intensity and energy mix changes was a reduction in CO2 emissions of 14%, the carbon tax was contributed to only 2% reduction. This relatively small effect relates to extensive tax exemptions and relatively inelastic demand in the sectors in which the tax is actually implemented. So it's not effective at doing what they say it's effective at doing. It's effective at lining big corporations' pockets at the expense of people who can hardly afford it. Here's T. Lee Humphrey, and he says, or actually Catherine McKenna says, it's great to read all the articles about the historic Supreme Court decision on our carbon pricing, but can we please change the language? The decision makes it clear it's not a carbon tax. Language clearly matters in this case. And Humphrey says, when the government forces me to give them money, it's a tax. Reality matters. Yeah. Jason Kenny says, Alberta didn't prep carbon tax fallback plan, was hoping to win in court. That's the whole article. Really. I think they're just trying to rub in the loss. He says he'll take the question to Albertans and how do you want to deal with this, basically? And they'll say, separation, Western separation, just like Quebec. So at least we'll be exempt one way or the other. They won't get it because Jason Kenney's not a separatist, but that's what they'll ask for. And they'll be ignored. Sorry, they will. I wish that wasn't true, but they will. Ezra Levent, this is just about free speech. We'll get into, hold on, I'm going to organize again. Hold on. We'll get back to Ezra in a minute. We'll talk about this. First, the Conservatives call on Liberals to stop payments to the Chinese Infrastructure Bank. Now, I'll remind you, we were just talking about the carbon tax, right? Carbon tax, constitutional, everybody's got to pay it, right? So the Liberals are going to use the money that they get from the carbon tax to pay for the Chinese Infrastructure Bank? That seems crazy. The Conservatives are calling on the Liberal government to stop funding the Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank, given the ongoing detention and secret trials of 2 Canadians in China. In a letter Tuesday to Justin Trudeau, Conservative leader Erin O'Toole urged the Prime Minister to cancel a US $40 million payment to the China-led agency. Oh, we'll just keep paying them if we stop paying them. Who knows what they'll do to the 2 Michaels, right? Elections. This is Trudeau not wanting an election, says Rex Glacier. This is CP24 reporting. Opposition leaders urged to speed up bill to ensure safe election during pandemic. This is the mail-in voting and the extending of the voting period and all of that other fun stuff. The bill they're trying to shove through because it worked so well in the United States, right? Spoiler alert. the election won't be called until that bill's through. And once that bill's through, why call an election? Why call an election anyway? It's not going to matter. Not going to matter in terms of the policy that they're pursuing and rolling out, because it's going to be the same, right? Here's Trudeau not wanting an election, right? Here's Terry Dowdall reporting, just wondering what message the Liberals are sending here when they say they only care about the health of Canadians and don't want an election, yet a minister has opened an election office. Isn't that interesting? There you go. An election office during not election time. Okay, remember a few days ago when I was talking about the fist, the oil sands, strong fist, and all of this other stuff? Pierre Poilievre has responded to the criticism, and he says a Liberal Party tweet slandered this multicultural group founded by this Métis man to champion diversity in the energy sector. The tweet disparaged Fort Mac and falsely alleged racism. Trudeau and local Liberal Chris Rogers must apologize to these workers for this appalling lie. I wonder if they'll apologize. I feel like the rules apply to Conservatives, but not to Liberals. The Liberals will just will just ignore this and do nothing and do. I think that's what they'll do. I don't think we'll see a classy. You're right. We shouldn't have said that. Apologies. I don't even know if they deleted the tweet. I don't know if they deleted the tweet. Okay, moving into, this is critical race theory, and Jordan Peterson tweeted this out. The new improved Scientific America, the Scientific American, is publishing articles titled "The Unbearable Whiteness of Climate Anxiety." Huh. Unbearable whiteness of climate anxiety. That's weird. I thought this was funny. The Human Rights, Equity and Inclusion at University of Waterloo blocked Jonathan Kay. Blocking people isn't very inclusive. I fear I'm already blocked by them, but who knows? I'm on lots of fun lists. Mike Gibbs, and I'll tell you who Mike Gibbs is in just 1 second. I'll read these tweets first, and then I'll tell you who he is. Okay, because it's more fun to find out after. Okay, here we go. He says, quote, this is on Twitter, "We need racialized people running public health. Way too many white people. I bet the factors behind Ontario and PHU failure is 65 to 75% Ford government and 30% too many white people leading public health. There, I said it. Look around," he continues. "So few racialized people in leadership positions. There's a few, not many, and at the provincial level, it's been 100% white for a very long time. I think they might have one or two tops at PHO right now in a leadership position. I don't know about the tables. We just did not have the right people in place. It was easily predictable that pandemic would hit racialized communities hard. It was systemic racism and a failure of public health leadership to not look ahead and think about having people in charge who know community needs." I'm gonna leave it there. I'll tell you who he is now. He is media relations, former Public Health Ontario, Minister of Health, POL, political staffer. So wild, right? I don't know if he's currently in any positions, but he was the media relations for Public Health Ontario. I don't know if it's current or not, but wow, like this is almost full-blown lefty radicalization, right? Anti-white radicalization. It's incredible considering his complexion, right? And I mean, the color of his dog. Anyway, very, very strange to see so much hatred for and blame. How, in what way is too many white people contributing to the failures? Like, I'm just interested in the rationalization, and in what way would more racialized people fix those failures? I wonder if there could be any articulation of the specifics, or if it's just a general, we all know that that's true. And I mean, it's not true, because racism is abhorrent. But in Guelph, everyone, good news. We have Black-only events. Yay, right? It's here. Oh, right. Solving racism, one racist event at a time. Oh, the clapping is going on far too long. Solving racism, one racist event at a time. Now imagine an Asian-only event. Is that okay? How about an Indian-only event? Still okay? How about a white-only event? No? Why not? Is that racist? Oh, well, you might be right about that. Here's the Change Starts Now Anti-Racism Summit. The Black Heritage Society of Guelph is putting this on. And you can see in the bottom corner there's the merged media, the Ontario sign, the City of Guelph sign, CIBC. All of these people are supporting the and you can see the dates here. It's April 29th to May 2nd, okay? And here's the event. Change starts now in the top left corner there, Thursday, April 29th, 2021. And it says Thursday, April 29th at 6 p.m. is a Black identifying space only for members to feel safe, heard, and seen. So it's okay to have Black-only events in Guelph, Ontario now. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that strange? Right? We're ushering in the equity, ushering in the new age of skin color rules. And if you're the wrong skin color, well, you're just not welcome to attend. Welcome to Guelph. It doesn't make me proud of my city. It doesn't. It makes me very. It makes me question how all of the leadership, all of the people sitting on boards, are they cowardly? Have they been so thoroughly brainwashed that they look at this and go, this is fine, right? The house is burning down around us. And they look at this and go, this is what we need to focus on. Really? Really? Everybody looks at this and says, this is good? This is solid? This is a good idea? Am I the only one who sees this and says, this is horrific? Racism is racism. It was wrong in 1951. It was wrong to do it to Black people then. It's wrong to do it to white people now. It's wrong. Am I the only one who sees this? Am I the only one who can say it? It's not hard, right? The counselors, the people who sit on these boards, if you're not allowed to say it, quit. And then say it. And say, I quit because I wasn't allowed to say that. Is that hard? Maybe it's time to do hard things. Maybe it's time to say things that need to be said. Is this bullying? Is this aggressive? Is this hostile? I don't know. I don't think I'm not trying to be aggressive or hostile, but I can't believe that any thinking person would look at this and say, brava, we've achieved equality. We've achieved something, but it's racist and it's abhorrent. And it has no place in Guelph in 2021. It has no place in Ontario or Canada in 2021. And yet here we are. Here we are. Yesterday I talked about how the school unions got tricked, hoodwinked. One year of working from home on a computer, and the Ontario government decided that they could just talk to TV Ontario. TV Ontario is much better at making content, and they've got professionals, right? They've got professionals. They know how to put together a TV show. You've seen Bill Nye. That's very educational, right? Psh, very educational. Okay, online school, TVO. Bam. See you later, teachers. So Ontario Public School Boards Association reasoned, articulate, evidence-based response to province's plan that TVO take over online learning. Worth a read. This change has significant implications for Ontario's students and for education quality. Yeah, well, I mean, you know, when the union gets blindsided by their own arrogance and stupidity, I mean, yeah, and I told you yesterday to expect the campaign like this, expect people to be pushing this. This is what's going to be happening for the next little while. This is the new boogeyman. The new boogeyman is online education, but they're not quite sure how to frame that or package that yet because they think they still need it, right? Because they've got to keep people safe from COVID-19. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. They're kind of stymied here. They're kind of they're behind. They're snookered. They're snookered. If you, the red ball doesn't matter about snooker. They are caught unawares, and now they're trying to figure out how to get back at it, and they don't know their messaging yet. So it's interesting, but I think that the use of buzzwords here, reasoned, articulate, evidence-based, is telling. I read it. I mean, I don't have any wish for online school to continue, but I think it's funny how enthusiastic the teachers were for things to continue the way they were when it looked like they could just continually expand the number of teachers by claiming that there were too many kids in the class, right? And they didn't think about this online thing too much. They weren't playing chess. They were playing checkers, and they're like, I'm going to get to the end there and get kinged. And the people who were playing chess were like, yeah, but you're losing this game terribly. Right? Okay, last thing, speech. Ezra Levent says, an online mob bullied a theater into canceling my book launch. I sued for the breach of contract, but I also sued everyone in the mob. Today, the theater owner apologized and confirmed it was the mob's threats that scared him. My suit against the mob continues. I don't know, and there's a link to the Stop Deplatforming. I don't know how you fight the mob. I don't know how you fight the cowardly counselors and the leadership who looks at our response to the isolation of students, the emotional abuse being unleashed by our public health, the abuse of removing students' right to freely breathe when they choose to, right? If you want to mandate masks, that's fine, but let the kids take off the masks when they want, right? Parents, it's like a double rule. Your parents are telling you have to listen to the teacher who's telling you have to wear a mask, and your parents are telling you have to wear a mask. So if you take the mask off, you're defying everybody and you're going to get in trouble. But you shouldn't get in trouble. It's a basic right. You should be able to be autonomous about your body. You should be able to make choices about your body, and nobody should tell you or be able to tell you when or when not to wear a mask. You should wear a mask because you want to wear a mask, or and be able to take it off whenever, right? And I don't think anybody should want to wear a mask. All of this media stuff pushing the masks is untenable. It's unbelievable. I watched a video the other day with a person asking a medical officer of health in Rhode Island, I think it was, and he was asking about mask efficacy, and he had data and he was citing the data, and her response to him, his question was like 2 minutes long. It was probably longer than it should have been. And her response was, masks work. Next question. He's like, in the face of all of this data, how can you stand by your statement? Masks work. Next question. Like, basically, like, sunglasses. That's it. And not in a good way. It's arrogance that drives that. It's cowardice that drives this. It's cowardice that drives this. Leadership should be standing up. And if the mob comes for you, if you stand up as the mayor of Guelph, I don't think that's going to happen. But if you stand up as a mayor and the mob comes for you and you get chased out of town for saying, I think everybody is equal and I think skin color should be secondary and I don't think we should be bowing to this nonsense. Critical race theory is basically communism. We need to stop this nonsense. If you get chased out of town for that, then you didn't want to be there in the first place. Really. And standing up for that shouldn't be bad. It shouldn't be seen as something to be chased out of town for. Right? I'm not advocating for anybody to be treated poorly. I'm advocating for everybody to be treated equally. And what you do with that opportunity is up to you. Nobody promises you anything. There's no guarantees for tomorrow. No guarantee for another go around the sun. Right? None. No guarantees. So it's all up to you. But in this crazy world, society owes everything to everyone with no work involved. You just should give it to us because we're oppressed. You who? You who? The taxpayer? Mm-mm. It doesn't work. People are being lied to, and the ineffective, cowardly leaders that we've got are not willing or able to articulate what is needing to be said to the public. And it is frustrating as all bloody heck that we have to endure this. Because if we had strong leadership, we wouldn't have to endure this. That's enough out of me. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. Check out SpeakingMoistly.co. And have a wonderful